one characteristic emerged as a significant predictor of success. It was grit.
All right. We're live. Well, we are not live, just me. This is Landon, and I thought I would record a solo podcast, which we've never done before, just in case we can't record this week, because I know Kyle and I both have a bunch of stuff going on after hours this week, and just I have a feeling it's going to be a hard week to record, so I'm just going to record this just in case, and just talk a little bit about some updates some updates on the business. It's been a wild last couple 2 to 3 weeks. If you've been listening to the podcast, then you know we've been launching some new businesses, and those have started to get ramped up. There's just a lot of things going on, which is why they tell you not to do multiple businesses. But it's been super fun. I have been very energized by it, and I think it's cool because we're doing some different things that they're just not, I don't know, they're not the type of businesses we've run before necessarily. I guess about a month, maybe a little bit, I guess a couple months ago, we finally decided to kickstart the hiring in the Philippines business that we had talked about literally for years and just never did. You know, we said, hey, let's get a website out there. Let's start to talk about it a little bit, and let's see what happens. That has been going, in my opinion, has been going really well. We're already placing people from the Philippines with American companies, which means, revenue is coming in the door, which is awesome. We've already been, we've probably talked to, I don't know, maybe 40, 50 candidates, and been able to qualify a bunch of those folks, kind of, find their specific niches and their experience and be able to categorize them in a number of ways. So we basically built out kind of two different CRMs within Notion. So we sort of have a hire with grit kind of HQ in Notion, and then within that we have a couple different databases. One database would be companies that have reached out to us and asked us if we could fill roles, and the other is all of these candidates that we're talking to. Actually, we have three. So we've got candidates that we're talking to in which we've reached out, so sort of outbound. Then we have another sort of an inbound queue, and that was something we did a couple weeks ago. We basically put a tally form on our site for candidates to apply if they want to. And since we're not pushing a lot of traffic at all, and definitely not a lot of candidate traffic to the website right now, so we this would be purely based on us sending this to people. So the way I look at it is everybody that we talk to in the Philippines, we should be asking them, do you have friends, do you have colleagues, do you have folks that you worked with in the past that you would want to share this with, and have them apply, and then we can talk to them and help them get placed somewhere. So I've been sending that to everybody we talk to, which obviously is giving us some small network effects there. But when those people apply via the form, it automatically adds them to this database within Notion, and then we can reach out to those folks. So we've got, in a short amount of time, quite a bit built out here in terms of a CRM and that sort of thing. Maybe in the future we'll need to use HubSpot or, some sort of ATS, applicant tracking system. But as of right now, I think when we're just getting started and you just want to kind of get something out there, Notion is perfect for that. It's super easy. We don't have to go pay, we're not paying extra for it. So I think that, that's one of the big values of Notion. So we've enjoyed that. So yeah, I've been doing a bunch of that stuff, talking to candidates at, midnight sometimes. One of our goals with the business is that we get, I think, there's a number of different hiring businesses out there. There's obviously a number of marketplaces like Upwork. And I think the value that we can provide, and really what we have to provide to be valuable, is that we have to find quality candidates. That's a given. But I think our biggest value is that we need to be able to do it quickly. So, our goal is always to find some, multiple people for you, within a week or less. In order to do that, we've got to, we've got to be quick on our end. But I think the biggest thing is that we've got to build sort of a pre-qualified database of candidates that we've already talked to in different categories with certain experience levels, and we already have to have that. So we need to be talking to people all the time. If we don't have that, it's gonna be a lot harder for us to be quick in terms of getting those candidates to you. I mean, our values basically take that work off your plate in terms of qualifying, which you could still do. You could go to Upwork and go through the whole process yourself, but that's going to be a lot, that's just a lot of time and effort. And so we're basically taking that off your plate and utilizing a network of folks that we already have on the ground in the Philippines. So as I've started to get into, like, part of me spending so much time doing this as like the founder, this certainly doesn't scale. I can't be on phone calls at midnight and doing all these different things. Like, that doesn't scale, especially since we have multiple businesses. But I do think that it's really important that, like, any founder, whenever you're starting something new, it could be a new product offering within your business, it could be a different, a new business that you're starting. Like, you need to do everything at first. You need to do everything that doesn't scale. You need to do the full process. Like, you got to do it all, because if you don't, like, you're just not going to understand. You're not going to understand the business well. You're not going to understand where the gaps are, where you can become more efficient. I mean, we've, like, with this business, like, we need to figure out, we don't even know for sure, like, what our niche is going to be in terms of, like, the roles that we fill. And so, like, at first you kind of just have to, like, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And so, we're hiring everything from, like, bookkeepers to ad operations folks, which is closer aligned to our ad reform business, to developers, to lead generation, customer support, like, all of these completely different things. But, I think it's important that we go down all of those rabbit holes, because if we don't, we won't know which ones are places we shouldn't be, or we shouldn't be playing in. So right now it's a lot of me just like, okay, here's where the gaps are in the process, or here's the type of stuff we need to say at this part of the process, because if we don't do that, then we're leaving ourselves, at odds of losing the opportunity or not getting the candidate placed. I've already found a ton of those issues. And so it's been, you want to get so far down the football field at first. You want to just see, like, all this progress in terms of revenue, but the truth of it is, like, you need to spend some time in the trenches, like, doing the things that aren't necessarily fun, maybe not making a lot of revenue at first because you're doing too many things, but you need to do those things because it just reveals so much about, like, the direction that you need to head. And if you don't learn it first and you don't go through those mistakes first or find out certain things first, you're not going to be able to delegate that to somebody else, which is what will end up scaling the business. So it's just stuff that I don't love doing, but I know that I have to do it in order to get this off the ground the way that it needs to. But it's certainly been fun to, already be making revenue and just learning something completely different that I have never done before. So, but it's been interesting as it compares to software businesses. I would say that it's a more simple business, in terms of, like, the workload of, like, having, like, you got to go talk to people and get on all these calls, and, like, everything feels manual, right? Like, the service feels manual. So that's not great as it compares to software, but it's just so much, it's way simpler in terms of, like, how to generate revenue. And it's why you can generate revenue, like, within a month of just, like, putting a website up, versus a software company. There's just so much upfront work to do to get a product out the door that's expensive to get out the door, expensive both in your time and or if you hire people like developers to do it. And you don't get you don't get those learnings initially, because you're building first, and then you, like, throw it out there for somebody to, like, try your product, and then you get your learnings from that point on. But you have to do so much upfront stuff first, which is why, like, I definitely, even with we've talked about this before, but even with the things that we're doing within our software products, like, we've definitely started a new trend of sort of, like, trying to do something as a service first and then build second. I think you can get away with not doing that. Like, I think you can get away with, like, going product first, like, tech first, when you have money, like, you're VC backed, and maybe, sometimes you get away with it as a bootstrapper as well. But when you're a bootstrapper, I think it's so much easier and faster and more efficient to do something as a service first and then build tech second. And that could be like do something first as a service and then like build a complete product, or that could be like we're going to still do the service, but we're going to like it's going to be a tech enabled service. And so we'll build things in, whether that's with like no code tools or a mix of that and like, you know, actual kind of like natively built products. But I do like I'm finding more and more that that's like a much better, at least in my opinion, and the way that, you know, I prefer to do things. Like I prefer to kind of go that route. And I'm actually seeing I'm seeing a lot of companies start this way. There's a venture kind of studio firm in Atlanta that's, you know, crushed it. Like in the past, they've built Pardot and SalesLoft and Rigor, which was where Kyle and I previously worked and now sold to Splunk, and Calendly. Like there's a ton of companies that have sort of like either received money from them or started out of the studio. And recently they've been the companies that they've been starting in the studio, they've started as complete services businesses. Like they don't even try to be like, they're not even trying to go product first at all. They're just finding a market that is big and growing, is like on some sort of wave they believe will be much bigger down the road. And they're starting a service in that market and then just like, all right, let's go run the service, make money while we're doing it, and also just learn a ton and find our niche or find where we can build product within this market. Like I just think that that's a much better way to start a business, a much higher likelihood that you will have success in some form or fashion than if you just straight up start with product right away. So that's been, yeah, it's been interesting. You know, I think we'll probably do, hopefully with the headhunting business, Hire with Grit, we will at some point, you know, start to make it a little bit more tech enabled, which I think we can do. So I don't know that it'll ever be, I mean, maybe we'll spot some gaps where we could like build a product in this space. But I think for this specific business, I don't think it's not a tech product, but I do think that it can be a tech-enabled services business. Just make it a lot more efficient, grow margins, things like that. And I think, you know, we're in a good spot to do that. But, you know, outside of that, we're currently working on a new free tool for ad reform called previewads.com. It's basically taking some of the tech that we already have inside of ad reform and making that piece of it free. It's just like a free tool, or it's actually technically a number of free tools to preview ads online. I know there probably aren't a lot of listeners that like are in this space, so I'm not even going to go into the details of what that means. But it's going to be interesting to see if that really leads to more brand recognition for conversions from that free tool to ad reform, and just the learnings that we'll, you know, experience with that. But so we're working on that right now. We're also working on some features for ad reform. And then Kyle is working on the new app docsfresh.com. Actually, I don't think we have the website. We own it. I don't think we've put anything on that site directly. I think it's on zeromile.io #docsfresh. I believe that's it. But he's sort of taking that as his special project. And so he's been working on that for about a month now. And hopefully we'll have something there soon. But it's like all these different things in play right now. And I've sort of been doing most of kind of the work and learning on the Hire with Grit side, which, because it's a service, is actually pretty easy to do since I'm not technical. So I've been doing most of the stuff on that with some feedback from our own team, as well as working with Kyle on that a little bit too. But I guess that might be a good time to transition into our sponsor, PunchList. So because we've been creating all these websites, obviously we mentioned this last time, but we've been using PunchList to basically go back and forth and collaborate on live websites to figure out what changes we want to make to it. We've been making a ton of changes lately to all of our different sites, because we had a company do an SEO audit on adreform.com, and so we needed to make some changes there and kind of collaborate back and forth before we make those. So we use PunchList for that, and then, you know, with the launch of Hire with Grit, you know, we've been going back on some different things there. and how we can, what landing pages do we want to include, that sort of thing. And so I expect that we'll continue to do that over the next couple months. I believe we'll probably move off of Card and go to Webflow at some point. So there's going to be a lot of collaboration needed. It's like moving into a new house, a much bigger house, and now you don't have any furniture anywhere, right? So Card is kind of like a basic website builder to get something out the door, but eventually you kind of probably need to move to something like Webflow. So now we'll be, okay, what furniture do we need for all of these different rooms that we have? And that's really kind of where punch list comes in handy. So it just makes it super simple to go back and forth. We'll also probably include some of our team in the Philippines on their feedback, because this is something that a lot of folks in the Philippines will be looking at. So we'll want to go just make it easy for them to communicate with us in regards to the site as we make changes. So punch list is just super easy to be able to do that. And I actually recently used it to sign a legal contract, which I had no idea that Punchlist offered this, but basically you can upload a PDF and go back and forth on that. Traditionally, I'd used like DocuSign and different things like that, but recently somebody sent me a PDF and I was like, you know what? I want to try this. So I started going back and forth with a PDF, and the potential customer of ours, they had sent like an MSA basically, and I sent them the link to Punchlist, and they were actually like, this is awesome. Like, how do I, like, can I sign up for this? So yeah, it's a great thing to use with potential customers or customers of yours. It's just it makes it so easy, and they usually love using it. So if you want to check it out, it's at punchlist.com. We'll include that in the show notes. And if you want to get a month for free, you can use promo code GRIT, GRIT. And just tell them we sent you, and they will hook you up. All right, back to the remainder of the podcast. So that we've been working on a ton of different things. I've definitely hit the point though where I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next. So I think that's a problem that every entrepreneur has, but it's at certain points of the business. But especially with us having so many businesses, and some of them, a lot of them are very early in their life cycle. So there's so many things to do, or so many things you could do in order to kind of take the next step forward in the business. I mean, I have a giant doc on my iPad, which I'm trying to open right now. And it's just like this, I just have one doc that's just marketing, like possible marketing initiatives that we could do for Hire with Grit. And it's just it's huge. And that's just marketing. That's not anything else within the business. So just, what I have to continue to remind myself is that you have to go through this period, which takes probably 3 to 6 months, where you're going to have to, some of these things are not going to work. Some of these things that you do, you're trying to prioritize things, and you're going to have to spend time on those things. And some of them just aren't going to, they're just not going to work. You're not going to get, there's going to be no fruits of your labor. It's just going to happen, and you have to go through that in order to get to the things that do. You want to do everything at once, but you can't. And so sometimes that can be sometimes I feel like, oh my gosh, there's so many things I could do. I just do nothing, because I'm just I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. And so then I just end up doing nothing. And I think that's that's something you can fall in, a trap you can fall into. And so what I try to do is okay, what is one thing that I can do today that's just taking action? And so this podcast is a perfect example. We didn't record one last week, and I feel like we might not record one this week. So I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to record one of my own. We've never even done this, but I'm just going to do it. And at least, I took action. I did something last week. I felt like we needed to probably open up some new social channels for the podcast to start, really marketing it, because we don't do any of that right now, other than a Twitter post where we just say we have a new episode. And so instead of just kind of writing down all the things we could do, which I've done a million times in the past, and we just never get to them because it feels like the last, priority. I said, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to do a couple of these within the next hour and a half. So I created accounts for TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter, basically all the different social channels, even ones that I've literally I don't even have an account for, TikTok because I'm not, like 20 years old. But I opened up accounts. I created some different, just simple like clips of the podcast, and I just posted this like across all the different channels that I just opened up, just to see like just to start and see how it works, and also see like what the response is, like how many views do we get, like that sort of thing. And it was really pretty surprising with like Instagram and TikTok. Like I got like a lot more views than any of the other platforms, which is what sort of like you hear about. Like you hear like TikTok's insane, like the algorithm, it just gets you so many more views on your videos and all this kind of stuff. And it's true. It actually does. I don't know if those are bots, but it did get a lot more views. We're talking like thousands of views versus like a Twitter, which gets like, and that's where my network is. Like that's the biggest network we have is on Twitter, and it's like the views are tiny. So unless like if I didn't do any of that stuff, I wouldn't know that now. And so now we're talking about using Hire with Grit to hire somebody in the Philippines that can both help us on the podcast editing side, but also what I'm calling like clipping. So just creating clips of the past podcast. We have like 50 some odd episodes that they can just go to right now, start creating clips of different interesting pieces of content, and then start to post them as videos all over these different platforms on sort of like a daily or weekly cadence. So I'm looking for somebody to be able to do that. I probably only need like, I don't know, maybe let's say like 5 hours, 5 to 10 hours a month, maybe. But this is not something that like I should be doing or want to be doing. So I think we can probably hire somebody for, yeah, like I said, 5 to 10, maybe 20 hours every month. So pretty inexpensive. That'll cover our podcast editing and all of these different things. It gives us, it puts a little bit of money at like sort of an experiment to see if this stuff starts to drive more listeners, which I think it will. I think we're gonna start recording this on video, which maybe you're watching this on YouTube right now, so we can pull clips from that as well and actually have video of the podcast. So anyways, just kind of like taking action on these things, doing at least one of those things that are sort of in that quadrant of like, I kind of want to do these, but like they're maybe not the top priority, but like, there should be at least one of these kind of small things that I can do on a daily basis, or at the very minimum a weekly basis, and just take action on them. Just do it. Who cares if it gets like, who cares if it doesn't go well, or if nobody cares, if it doesn't drive anything. At least you now know that, and that can be one more thing marked off your list, because I got a list like 10 miles long of things that we could do or we should do, and you just drown in it and you never get to those things. So I think defaulting to action and just doing one of those every week or maybe every day is something I've really been focused on lately. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think we'll have some more updates soon about the business. I want to try to be like pretty transparent with this, since it's a business where it's like, it's not like a product where, I don't know, I feel a little bit more guarded about like SaaS products and people copying you and all this kind of stuff. Like I just feel no need to like give all that information out and have someone come out, and copy everything. With this business, it's, there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of competitors and stuff. No one's going to be copying. There's nothing to copy. Like it's a service. You don't have like IP. So I want to be like more transparent with this business and sort of like how it's doing and getting it off the ground. My goal is to do 6 figures in revenue within the first year. And after the first like month or so, like I definitely think that's attainable. So to me, that would be a massive success for the first year, and would give us a lot of confidence to invest more in this business, hire more folks, that sort of thing, start doing maybe advertising, different things like that. So excited to see where that leads. I will keep everybody updated on that. And of course, like if you're hiring for any of your main roles, or you think there's, potentially an area where you could use, it could be any task that you're just doing where you're like, why am I doing this? I shouldn't be spending time on this. This would be much, much better to delegate to somebody else that, isn't, at my sort of like hourly rate as the founder. We are more than happy to help. Reach out on hirewithgrit.com, and we can, like I said, we'll find somebody. It's incredibly surprising how many great candidates there are in the Philippines. Every time I like I've talked to somebody, I'm just like, you're awesome. Can I hire you right now? And then I have to get reminded that I'm finding someone for another company. So, but yeah, it's crazy how much talent is there and that's looking for roles, and that the pay that you would be paying them is just like they're making good money in their country where there's a completely different cost of living than the United States. And so, but like for a US company, it's incredibly cost effective. I mean, we're talking like, probably around 80% less, maybe 85% less than if you paid somebody in the US. So if anybody has any roles they want to fill, if they, it's basically like all upside. Like you sign up, you don't pay anything unless we find somebody for you and you hire them. Yeah, there's no downside. Reach out. We're happy to help. And hopefully we will be back with Kyle next week. And if not, we'll get another guest on the pod. I have a couple that I've been reaching out to, so we should be able to get hopefully more of these out over the next couple weeks. But it's a weird way. Like, how do you end this podcast when it's just you? Yeah. I guess I will just say bye to myself. Until next time. Cheers.